Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randall and Gus Kearns.
Welcome in, listeners, to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where we're always talking everything college hoops. You could have been anywhere else on the dial, but you chose to be here with us, Mike and Gus. We totally appreciate it. Thankfully, the season has gotten started, and now we have a small sample size to dig into, and there's no better person to analyze those small sample sizes than Jordan Sperber. Jordan is the founder of Hoops Vision. You can go sign up for hoopsvisionhq.com. Please follow him over at hoopsvision68 on Twitter. And don't forget to listen to the Solving Basketball podcast on all of your podcast consumption vehicles of choice. Jordan, thanks so much for hopping on the pod. How's everything going on your end?
I've been doing good. Thanks for having me back again.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for visiting the pod again. And thank you for some fresh EPs of Solving Basketball for our ears with excellent guests. Love your conversation with Dan Dickow and Oral Roberts coach Paul Mills. Mm-hmm. We really value the conversation with other basketball podcast hosts like yourself, and yours is one of the sharpest. So I guess let's just jump into the questions. On your Solving Basketball podcast, you recently housed the head coach of one of our favorite teams, Colorado State. And after working alongside and chatting with Nico Medved, can you highlight some of the elements that make David Roddy one of the most unique players in the nation thus far?
Yeah. Well, we talked about this a little bit on the podcast. They like to use him. They run a bunch of different things offensively, but one of the ways that they use David Roddy is in 5 out. So all 5 players out on the perimeter. And especially when he's playing the 5, sometimes he'll play the 4, the power forward spot. Sometimes he'll play the center spot. But when he's playing the 5, he's at the top of the key. And that's an area where, Drew Timme plays a lot out of for Gonzaga. Cameron Krutwig last year for Loyola Chicago but Roddy is like as good as anyone I've seen in that spot because he's big and strong, which is helpful when going up against 5s, but he's also like surprisingly shifty. He's got a nice crossover. He's pretty agile, and he's really, really hurt teams from that area. And he also will play more traditionally, like in the mid post as a post up player as well. But his unique skill set plus he's shooting the ball so well this year have made him, legitimately one of the best players in the country, I'd say.
I totally agree with you. And, just a quick aside, my daughter's team runs 5 out. So that makes me feel a little bit better about our offensive plan right now. And then I guess further on the Rams, what's one action, besides the 5 out that the Rams are going to run on offense that seems to be finding success possession after possession that listeners can look for while they're staying up late to watch the Rams?
Yeah, well, I think that on my podcast with Nico, he talked about different coaches and styles that he's been inspired by, and it started with Dana Altman, who doesn't run it quite as much as he once did, but at Creighton he ran the spread offense, right. And there's still some remnants of that in Colorado State, but I actually think that the biggest visible inspiration, which Nico did mention this coach, is John Beilein, and his 2-guard offense, which is very similar. Or watching at least this year's Colorado State team, you do get a lot of Michigan vibes. Like I'm thinking even like Nick Stauskas, Michigan. Beilein later in his career shifted more and more towards ball screens, but especially, maybe at the beginning or middle of his Michigan career, there's a lot of that. It's a combination of the Beilein stuff, the spread stuff, and then also the Princeton offense. So it's like a hybrid.
And if you're going to, copy those years, I mean, the Final 4 run and game run, like that's obviously something to copycat in the college game for sure. Another program that we adore is Gonzaga, and the Zags, remained one of the lossless teams until the final game last year. The season already holds 2 losses, with multiple moving parts that are different from last season. Loaded question here. Was Kispert that valuable as the elite floor spacer? Was Suggs that gritty? And do you think that the talented players on the perimeter, Harris, Brooks, Salas, Strother, are going to find their path and find like successful positions on the floor, and will that allow Chet to find his true value and role on this talented roster? What's the puzzle pieces, and how are the Zags going to put it together later on in the season?
Yeah, well, for the first part of the question, I think it's really the combination of Suggs, Kisper, and Ayayi too. You know, those three that is losing quite a bit. Obviously, they brought in, you know, Bolton and Chet. Obviously, I mean, I'm still pretty high on the Zags. I think, especially the Duke game, they look good. You know, as good as you can look in a loss, pretty much.
Right.
But clearly, you know, they didn't look that good in the Alabama game. But yeah, personally, I think that Strother and Bolton have been pretty good this year. They're both shooting a good percentage from three, and they take like off the bounce kind of tough threes.
Bolton especially, he's decent off the bounce. Yeah.
Yep, he'll take them in transition, and I think that they at times they're a little bit reliant on Timmy. Nembhard didn't have the best couple games here of late. Who's their primary guy using ball screens, and when he didn't have a great game, it was Timmy played a much higher usage role than he probably would have last year with some more weapons. But I don't think that offense is going to be the problem for the Zags, even if they are a little bit worse than last year's team. I think they're still an elite offensive team. And then defensively, I still think that they should be better than last year, just given Chet Holmgren, you know, with his rim protection. He's, I think, top 10 in the country right now in block percentage. Yep. But yeah, they're just a little bit weird right now because they look so dominant against UCLA and Texas. And I'm interested to see them on Saturday against Texas Tech.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that matchup too. And that's a decent stretch for Texas Tech as well. They're going to play 3 out of 4 games where we're really going to learn the truth about them right away and see if, you know, the new pieces, including Obener from Oral Roberts, are going to fit in nicely. And but yeah, I think the defensive perimeter from last season, I think, you know, Suggs and Ayayi on the perimeter really helped mask some of those flaws. And maybe some of those flaws are, you know, kind of showing themselves a little bit right now. But I agree. I think Holmgren might be the best rim protector they've had in a long time, maybe in a different way since Shemek, you know, with a little bit more verticality and shot deterrence. But yeah, definitely impactful on the defensive end. You're the proud founder of like pretty much a massive college hoops platform, Hoops Visions Plus. The listeners can get, you know, a bevy of information about college hoops from your particular mind. Take a second. Tell the listeners where they can find that intelligent information. Brag a little bit about what you got building and what you're looking forward to in the future.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I have a newsletter. There's generally speaking, sometimes the schedule changes a little bit, but we do a Friday newsletter, which is for free, you know, a free newsletter. And then our Monday newsletters for paid subscribers only. This we're recording this right now on Thursday, and the newsletter I'm working on right now is on Villanova and floaters. Villanova doesn't shoot any floaters, and I'm writing about that. That's at hoopvision.substack.com. So it's I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Substack, a newsletter platform. And then my Twitter is hoopvision68 at hoopvision68.
Definitely love reading the newsletters every week. So thanks for those. We appreciate them and consuming them for sure. Now that we spoke that we have a decent sample size to digest, and knowing the exact length of the road ahead and which teams might be holding like that brim full of Asher, that hope that's awaiting, and, you know, what that effort needs, which programs in your eyes check all the boxes thus far to navigate, you know, maybe to a Final Four, or, you know, possibly maybe in quotes, win the whole darn thing. And maybe that team might be in plain sight now, or maybe it's currently camouflaged. What have you seen so far?
Yeah, I think that the two teams that have clearly played the best are Baylor and Arizona. That being said, you know, history tells us that specifically for a team like Arizona that is sort of unexpectedly playing as well as they have that we should anchor what we're seeing to preseason expectations. Like if you think about a system like KenPom right now, Arizona is only 7th because there's still preseason ratings being factored in, and Ken actually phases that out in, I want to say maybe late January or somewhere around there. But I think he said in the past that technically the more accurate or the more predictive statistical thing would be to not factor it out at any point in the season and to keep it in. It would be better at predicting even NCAA tournament results, but it's a personal choice to not include that. So yeah, I think that those two teams have played extremely well, but we would have said the same thing about Purdue like a week ago. Like
totally
they would have been
true. Right.
They would have been the team that have played really well. But so I'd throw those two: Purdue, Gonzaga, who we already talked about, and Kansas. And probably you could put Duke in there too. I really don't think that a team has separated themselves from the pack, and I think that we have a good chance of going into March with like very spread out championship odds, which would be fun. I don't think we've had that in at least a few years that I've been doing Hoop Vision.
I totally agree with that spread look as far as the odds or the chances for success. If you take you referenced Ken, and over at KenPom, like every team is below that 30 number, where magically if you're above that, then that signifies that you're a special team, especially
Sure.
That Kentucky team, that was up at like 36 that had a bunch of pros on it, and everybody's sitting below 30. So you're right. Like all of those teams that you mentioned all the way down to Arizona, which I think you said was at 7. Yeah, those odds are going to look pretty similar by season's end. I agree with you there. All right, Jordan, last season, it granted us Max Asmus and some of the highest ball screens in college basketball anywhere. And they rode that all the way to a Sweet 16. Have your eyes seen a unique player or a unique system that you stumbled on that could result in, similar success, an upset, or maybe just fun to watch? Not dissimilar from Oral Roberts last year.
Mm-hmm. Well, this player is very different from Max Asmus, but very different, kind of polar opposite, but similarly fun and a little like unique, I guess. Kenneth Lofton from Louisiana Tech. They have to make the tournament. I don't necessarily think that they'll be an at-large team, so they'll probably most likely have to win Conference USA outright. But he is second in the country right now in offensive rebounding percentage. Back to the basket guy. Just his body type in general is pretty unique at 275. Yes. He was kind of he played for a USA team this summer for Team USA. I don't know, the U19 or whatever it was. And
I think it was that same team with like Jaden Ivey, right?
Yep, Jaden Ivey was on that team. Yeah. And drew a lot of attention from that. He's a fun watch at the mid-ish major level.
That's great that you brought him up. We're big fans. We talked to Evan Dudley, who covers UBA, and he mentioned him right away as one of the best players, not only in the conference, but maybe one of the sneaky best players in the country. So we've been fans of him since the preseason for sure, and even going back into last season, no doubt. So he's a great call. Let's get you out of here on 3 quickies. Hopefully they're fun. Hopefully they'll lead to some cool answers. Can you identify a player that just might explode like the rest of the season now that we're going to get inside to league play? And maybe, somebody that might, we've had a pleasant explosions like Johnny Davis or Freeman Liberty from DePaul or Justin Bean. Like, so who's one player where you're like, I like what he's doing and he just might pop a little bit further as the season progresses into league play?
I don't know if this is the best answer, but like a Kendall Brown from Baylor, I don't think is getting a ton of attention. So Baylor just had the big win and got attention as a team, but I'm not sure that like America has broken down their roster yet.
Right.
I mean, I'm very high on Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua. He always gets a ton of love on the broadcast from whoever's announcing the game. He's like a coach's guy,
Right.
But yeah, I think that their roster in general, as a lot of underrated players, is right now the narrative is sort of all the players they lost, and rightfully so. They're on the NBA and how good those guys were. But yeah, you could kind of pick. You could pick Matthew Meyer. You could pick almost anyone on that Baylor roster.
Right.
Really.
You can include Cryer in that as well. He's playing
for sure. Who I think is leading them in scoring. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally unpredictable. All right. And let's see. Which team or player has just been a pleasant surprise in your eyes 10 games or so into the college basketball season where you're just like applauding in your living room or in your recording studio? We're like, I'm so glad to see this.
Good question. I'm trying to look at KenPom here. That's the default. Well, actually, you know what? It's probably San Francisco who
totally.
I've interviewed a few of their coaching staff members on my podcast. They're like at one point there felt like they were the official sponsor of Solving Basketball for a while there. But yeah, they had a pretty good year last year in terms of efficiency, but they went 11-14 and 4-9 in WCC play. And so they were one of the unluckier teams in college basketball last year. And then they brought in some pretty impact transfers, Stefanini and Tape and those guys. It was like the Kyle Smith, Todd Golden worked for Kyle Smith at San Francisco, and they brought in like a mixture of Columbia transfers and when Kyle Smith was there, and it's like it's worked out pretty well for them. They're 10-0 right now, and their efficiency numbers are still good this year. It will be interesting to see them against, the St. Mary's and the Gonzagas and the BYU's. But they've got a pretty deep roster.
And you throw in, the transfers that you mentioned with BA, and that's a talented perimeter, no doubt. And it's nice to have another name in that WCC lineup with, the three that you mentioned. And then we can also include San Francisco with that. And then last one, what's one team that you feel like is well worth the watch? Whether it be unique sets, special roster pieces, or just might be fun, or you really like what the coaching staff is doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm always looking for these types of teams because in February, I start making like these deep dive YouTube videos. Last year, I did Loyola Chicago, who's good again this year, but I probably wouldn't do them a second year in a row for the video. I did Houston, and a team that I have my eye on. It's very early, so no promises here that a video is coming. But LSU, specifically their defense, right now they're number 2 in adjusted defensive efficiency. I haven't watched them a ton, but they switch everything like 1 through 5. They're very aggressive. They're number 1 in the country right now at a defensive steal percentage, so forcing turnovers. And they also allow a lot of threes. They let you shoot threes, or maybe it's that teams aren't able to shoot twos, and then they default to threes. So there's a lot going on statistically with that defense, and I still need to dive into the scheme a little bit. But the switching is very noticeable at first glance, and if they keep winning, they're definitely going to be on my short list of teams to do something on.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And that's a total complete change from their defensive numbers in years past, which is, we want to see if that's sustainable for them with this roster group. But yeah, I think that's definitely something to pay attention to, no doubt. All right, Jordan, thank you so much. Thanks for a couple of minutes, and thanks for helping us out and helping us get a little bit smarter about college basketball. Again, please give Jordan a follow over at HoopVision68 over on Twitter. And don't forget to check out HoopVisionHQ.com, and you can check out the Substack as well for the newsletter. Jordan, thank you so much for a couple of minutes. Totally looking forward to what you're going to do in the future this season. And, thanks for helping us out and popping on the pod again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gus. Appreciate it.
Of course. Cheers. Cilantro. Gasulazzi, everybody. Arigato. I'm addicted to the appetite. Reserve a seat in advance. I'm cozy in the candlelight.